Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be providing a long-term market update for Chainlink, and I specifically want to discuss what I would consider to be the most bullish scenario. And I'm going to be focusing on the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio, which has been in this longer-term downtrend ever since that peak from back here in the DeFi summer. In August of 2020, we basically had that big blow off top on the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio. And ever since then, we have been forming a very consistent trend of lower highs and lower lows. And the most bullish scenario is really just going to be a reversal of this downtrend and a continuation of that longer term uptrend that we have, where Chainlink historically had this incredible outperformance against Bitcoin. And I'm just looking for a resumption of this trend as the most bullish scenario. And I don't want to focus on the Chainlink USD pair too much because I think that in general, a lot of those altcoins are highly correlated to Bitcoin, and ultimately it just comes down and boils down to, is the altcoin outperforming Bitcoin or not? Because if it's not, it's taking on higher risk and that opportunity cost is quite expensive. So if you have capital invested in Chainlink, those dollars are not being invested in Bitcoin. That is why I seek outperformance to the upside, and that is why I'm going to be focusing on the LINK Bitcoin ratio. And for this video, I'm really just going to be diving into a comparison of the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio during this market cycle compared to the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio from the last market cycle. So that is what this chart represents, the blue line being the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio, and then the white line being the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio from again back here in that 2017-2018 peak. And the goal here is really to just look at the similarities between these two assets, look at how they compare, and ultimately discuss what is theoretically on the table. And that's why I really like fractal patterns and comparisons of charts over the years, because it gives you a good idea of what's happened before, what are the historical returns, and how that can translate into the future. Is it possible for the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio to make new all-time highs? Is it possible for it to have a multi-year long reversal after having this very consistent downtrend? And compared to the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, this is not an atypical chart within the ecosystem. We have had altcoins in the past have major uptrends, major rallies during the bull run, have a huge correction over 2 years during that bear market, and then eventually have that reversal. And I also do like comparing them because they actually have a lot of similarities and a lot of interesting characteristics that they share during this big blow off top towards that peak. And what I want to focus on is how they both had this sort of structure where the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio from back here in 2017 and 2018 had its first peak right here in June of 2017, when the USD chart had its interim peak. We had the first major leg up, and then eventually we consolidated. Meanwhile, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio bled. And then Ethereum was later able to make that new all-time high, the next run up, while the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation formed a lower high. So we almost had this multi-month long divergence. And what's interesting is the exact same pattern happened for Chainlink during that last market cycle. We saw the LINK Bitcoin valuation peak again back in the DeFi summer at August of 2020, and then had that peak where it bled into the next several months, while Chainlink had this continuation higher. And that's really what I'm talking about here with this opportunity cost. Though Chainlink was able to have this move from $20 all the way back up to $53, it lost that valuation with respect to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin actually ended up outperforming Chainlink. And the reason I like to look at this is because, again, it has a very similar look towards how they peaked. They have very similar characteristics in terms of the history and the price action, and we might be able to use that to our favor towards the downside to seek out some sort of longer term trend reversal. And with the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio trend reversal, what we experienced was, again, the multi-year long downtrend of the lower highs and the lower lows, just continuing that pattern while Bitcoin had its bear market, eventually came to an inflection point. And it had this longer term double bottom where it came back down, retesting the same level of support. And then eventually from there, it really started to shift that longer term momentum, coming back up here to form higher highs, higher lows. And then ever since then, it has just been repeating that process. And it's been a very methodical and gradual move up right here, giving us that confidence of a longer term trend reversal all the way back up to close to these all-time highs. And that's exactly what I want to see here with Chainlink on the Bitcoin valuation. We haven't really seen much unfold in the last several months, but we do have that general momentum starting to reverse. We have the rate of change to the downside definitely decreasing here. We're no longer seeing these very aggressive drops, but rather we're just kind of going sideways. The Chainlink Bitcoin valuation, if I switch over here to the candlestick chart, is basically at the same level it was all the way back here in June of 2022. So for the most part, we've just been going sideways over the last 6 months, just kind of grinding out this choppy range, which is positive in the sense that we haven't seen a breakdown, we haven't seen lower lows, and we've maintained the support, which again are all signs that we do have the momentum to the downside really starting to slow down. So what we can look out to say for in the next few months, and especially with that bullish scenario, is we could either have a higher low form somewhere in this region, or we could have a potential double bottom. Now, what that would look like is on the chart, if we do have a retest coming back down to these lows from back in the summer time frame right here in May and June of 2022, then we could have a very similar structure at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio had, where it basically had the first low, a couple months later it came back down to retest, it held support, and then from there it reversed a downtrend. So for the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio, what that would look like is essentially coming back down all the way to retest those lows from back in the summer of 2022, providing support, and then eventually starting to come back up, make a higher high, and then some higher lows. So something like this, where we would have that move coming back down again to have that double bottom, coming back up to make a higher high, and eventually just reversing that trend, giving the momentum back to the upside and printing this longer term rounded bottom. And that would be if we have a much more similar pattern that the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio did. Again, you can see that's exactly what happened. We have the double bottom, the higher highs and higher lows following that. We could also have a much more bullish scenario in which we form a higher low somewhere in this zone. And that would just be a reversal from this point, and then eventually looking for a higher high on this weekly chart, which would definitely signify an end to this general downward sloping resistance, this general trend line. If I toggle off the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, you can see how that would very quickly gain some confidence and momentum back to the upside, where this would be the most bullish scenario, where we wouldn't necessarily have to come back down and retest these lows. And if we did have that higher low, again, you could look at this as an uptrend with that structure, again, starting to break through resistance, give us multi-month highs, and eventually just trending back up like that Ethereum Bitcoin ratio did all the way back in 2017 and 2018. So overall, that is what I'm going to be looking out for. Again, the goal of this video is to just look at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio as an example of what's possible. And what's possible is essentially having this multi-year long downtrend, taking an asset down 90% against Bitcoin, and then eventually forming a reversal, a big macro bottom, and then going pretty much all the way back up to those local highs. And if we did have that for Chainlink, again, that would be a significant move. That would take Chainlink all the way back up to these high levels around 158,000 Satoshis, which would be about a 450% return, outperforming Bitcoin. And obviously you can get to some of those much higher valuations if Bitcoin itself is moving up. So again, this is the chart to focus on. This is what I'm going to be paying attention to. And within the next few months, I'm going to be looking for if we can either have some sort of higher low printing this new uptrend channel, or if we were to say have a retest of that bottom and have a double bottom pattern like the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio did from back in the previous market cycle. I hope you guys did enjoy the content and the analysis. By the way, make sure to check out my Twitter page. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. As always, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.